skip a few things.
I don't think the boss will leave it. We're all here. So.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Anyway, I was going to introduce myself a bit, but I think I can skip this part to speed up the presentation. I'm going to talk right about what I'm going to talk about. And this was a real use case. Customer was a licensed reseller, and they wanted to be able to demonstrate the products that they're selling. And for this purpose, I was asked to be the architect for the experience center. Now, an experience center is not a playground. It's also not a production environment. It should work, it should be reliable, but there are no users, and that's really great. I prefer all my projects that have no users, but unfortunately, that's not how it works. And one thing about this environment was that there's no IT guy. The guy who gives the presentations is basically the sales guy, and he needs to be able to redeploy the image, including all the software on it. So we really had to create a fully automated deployment, one click, and deploy the new image. And, deploy just means, normally it means build the image, but I'm talking about building it, and then in this case using machine creation services to deploy it out to the virtual machines. So, I'm not talking about deploying the whole infrastructure, because we already have installed all those components. And in this case, it's Nutanix hardware with the VMware, Microsoft infrastructure, and we're talking about Strix, so that's SendUp and SendDesktop. All the infrastructure components are there, except for the actual machine, so the SendUp machines and SendDesktop machines. Okay, start to finish automation means we start at having almost nothing, just the operating system, and we end up with a desktop where you can log on to with just one click. So most of the time when I see automation, automation is used to install software in an image. Before you can do that, you usually need to power on a virtual machine or prepare a template. In this case, that part will also be automated. And after the installation is finished and the image is sealed, we need to deploy it. So we need to create the machines based on the image. So start to finish automation means automating all of this. And for this environment, I had these tools at my disposal, which is REST Automation Manager. I know I should be saying one automation, but I kind of like the old name. Strix Machine Creation Services, Microsoft PowerShell to do the actions that you would normally do in Studio. And you may ask, can this also be done with PVS? So, which means creating the 3D, capturing it and deploying it, yes, but it's not covered in this presentation. But I will blog about it, or maybe sometimes give a presentation about how to do the same thing with PVS. So, first things first, we need to start up with a template machine to be able to build the image. So, I wanted to make this as vanilla as possible, so no personalization, nothing about organization in this image, just mounting the Windows ISO, installing it with all the defaults, and that's it. So, clean starting point. One thing, however, I always recommend to automate everything, but there's one exception, and this is the Internet Explorer Enhanced Security Configuration. Now, you may have found some scripts on the internet, and you may have been using them to use, I don't think you can see this. Zoom in a bit. You may have seen scripts to put the registry entry like this. But my advice is don't do that, because yes, it will turn it off, but you will not be able to play HTML5 video unless you manually click the off button. And I've tried to find out with Process Monitor to realize the exact bits that needs to be changed, and I noticed thousands of Internet Explorer registry written when you click the button. So it's a lot easier just to click it off manually. So this is the only manual step in the whole process that you would do to build your instance. Then I would install the hypervisor tools, because in this case with VMware you have the VMX Snap adapters, and without that you can't even assign an IP address. So you install the hypervisor tools, and then I copy 3 files. One is the unattended XML, probably you already know what it is. When you sysprep a machine, you use it to answer the out-of-the-box experience questions so that it becomes automated. And there is the setup complete.cmd. Maybe you're not familiar with it. What it does is when the out-of-the-bounds experience from sysprep has finished, Windows will always try to execute this file in this folder if it exists. So it's a great way to deploy, in this case, the automation agent at the moment the sysprep degeneralization has been completed. So in this setup complete.cmd, I just put the msixec command line, which would install, in this case, the REST automation agent, which will then automatically discover the dispatcher. If you're familiar with REST automation, you know that this dispatcher will identify the machine, usually based on a unique ID. Because we're going to reuse this every time, I recommend to change it to computer domain name and NetBIOS name. So what will happen, out-of-the-box experience is finished, the automation manager agent will be installed, and it will immediately accept whatever task is scheduled at that moment. So then, after just copying those files, so we haven't installed, executed anything, we just execute sysprep, including the shutdown parameter, and within the unattended we specify the domain name and the host name. And then we take a snapshot. This is called the pre-automation snapshot. Every time we go back to this snapshot, we can do an automatic deployment. So now we are going into the automation. The first step in the automation is to go back to the snapshots. The first time, of course, doesn't make much sense, but the second time you run it, it makes a lot of sense. And because we're running on VMware, you can do this with PowerShell. Just connect and authenticate to your vCenter, and then you can use these quick one-line commands to take a snapshot, revert to a snapshot, or remove a snapshot. After you've reverted to the snapshot, the machine will still be off because it was off when we took the snapshot. So you'd have to issue a start VM command to power it on. Then the agent will communicate with the automation manager dispatcher, and all the software will be installed. And I'm not going to talk a lot about installing the software, because I'm thinking when you have used automation projects, you already know how to do that. Just one piece of advice: don't try to think the ghost way or the sequential way, where you start here, you finish here, and every action is a sequential action until finish. Because that's not a very scalable way to manage it. I recommend to think about the layered model, where you have your operating system layer, your application layer, and maybe the layers in between. Then, if you go into your REST automation console, in projects you would create a layer for each project, and then execute those layers sequentially. But then, for example, when you have a Windows 10 instead of 2012 R2, you just change the layer in your runbook and keep the rest of the layers the same. So you can easily make several variations maybe another workstation project, etc. After the software installation is finished, we use the PowerShell command again to take a snapshot. In this case, the snapshot will be used for the MCS deployment, so I call it MCS Snapshot. I think all of you know what is MCS, but if you don't know what is MCS, let me give a basic explanation about machine integration services. Basically what is done is a copy is made from a template VM or a snapshot on a template VM. This copy will be like a master copy. It will be a parent disk for all the send-up or send-desktop machines created from it. They will have a differencing disk to capture all the writes, and they will use this as a parent disk. So this is sometimes called linked clones, or depending on which hypervisor you ask, you may know another name. Hypotheticals, differencing disks. And these are non-persistent, so if they reboot, they can get wiped and you have a clean machine again. This is the basic, simplified explanation of machine creation services. So what we need to do is we need to automate the creating copy and then deploying it out, which you would manually do by going into Studio and then going through the machine catalog wizard and selecting MCS as your deployment type. We do that also now to figure out, when you're going to create a PowerShell script for it, what are the parameters and what are the variables that we need to provide when we create a script for it ourselves. So the first thing would be the machine type, server OS or desktop OS. Then provisioning type. And when you select MCS, you also have to select a connection to your to the resource on your hypervisor. In this case, I've called it setup. So we have the provisioning type and the host resource. Then you select you need the name of the virtual machine which is serving as your template VM, and the name of the snapshot which you will use to deploy your machine from. So finally you need the number of machines you want to create, number of CPU, memory, etc. So these are the variables you have so far. Then the OU in which to deploy them, so that's org unit. The naming scheme, usually numeric. In this case, very simple, XA01 would be the first one, 02 would be the second one. So you have names, naming scheme and scheme type. And finally, the name for the catalog which you're creating and a description for it. This is optional, but when you're automating, it's always nice to have some kind of date stamp when the automation runs. So in the script, we will generate the date and then put it in the description. So now we run it, and in the background it executed PowerShell codes. To get to it, you go to the Citrix Studio node at the top and the PowerShell tab, and then you can see a very readable text, as you can see. Okay, not very readable. So copy it and you paste it in IAC, which gives it coloring and looks a bit nicer, but it's still a bit hard to read, and there's some stuff relating to logging, which you really don't need to create automation. So when you clean it up a bit, it looks like this. Well, you now have all the commands that you would theoretically need to create a machine catalog with machine creation services. However, if you look at this closely, you see that there's a lot of fixed unique IDs in this script. So it would work one time. If you run it again, it's using the same IDs, it doesn't work again. But there's also something interesting I noticed about this. For example, here you create an account identity pool, which is like a container for the AD accounts that will be created. And then when you create the AD accounts here, firstly it checks which is the first available one, and then it creates two based on the unique ID for the thing that's created here. But notice this, at no point is the unique ID displayed here or stored in a variable. So how does this command know what the unique ID is? It's not sent into the pipeline, it's not stored anywhere. So I realized by looking at this that the whole notion of Studio just being a GUI and beneath is PowerShell is wrong. Actually there is, or there has to be, some kind of mystery layer in the middle. This is actually generating the PowerShell code, capturing the output, storing it in the SQL database, querying your SQL database to get a unique ID, and then using it to generate the next PowerShell command. I don't even know what programming language it's in. It doesn't really matter. But what we do need to know is that if we're going to script it ourselves, we need to do this work ourselves. So, firstly, we have to create a machine catalog. The first command to use is the new account ID identity pool, which will store the AD accounts. You need to create this in a specific order because you can't create AD accounts before you create the pool. And there will be many dependencies. And the only way to find out is to go here and stare at it until it all makes sense. So then you create the two AD accounts, and when you run this command, the AD accounts will be created in the Active Directory. Next, you need to create something called the provisioning scheme. And the provisioning scheme has a lot of properties. The important ones are the hosting unit, so the connection to your hypervisor, the name of the virtual machine where you're creating, where you will be creating machines from, and the name of the snapshot. When you execute the code, new prof scheme, at this point in time, your hypervisor, in this case VMware, will start copying the disk. So that's the automation built in the PowerShell snapping from strips. Optionally, you can add a provisioning scheme controller address, which is if you're using MCS to provide the name of the delivery controller. Of course, you can use also another method like registry or group policy. Then, when you run the prof VM, so new prof VM command, the actual virtual machines will be created. One thing is you need to specify the provisioning scheme unique ID when you create these, because based on this, they know what to create it of. Then the machines are created, AD accounts are created, disks are copied, that's all finished, but in Studio you still don't see anything. So you create the broker catalog, which is the machine catalog, but the term in PowerShell is broker catalog. And you don't need, there is no dependency, you can just create it empty. It doesn't work, but it will show up. Optionally, you can add metadata. When you do it via the wizard, it does this, so it's nice to do, but I tried without and it also works. And you attach, or you make a connection between the prof scheme, which has a lot of properties, and the broker catalog. This will allow you to add machines that are created based on this prof scheme to be added to the broker catalog. So you need to set the broker catalog with the scheme ID. Then finally you can add the machines into your studio, which you will do by the new broker machine command. Right. But this is just the machine catalog. What do we need to do before the users can log on what do you need to create in Studio after you create a machine catalog?
Delivery group.
Exactly, delivery group. So we also have to automate this. What's happening? Oh, the power. Oh, it's on. Okay. Okay. It wasn't on my screen here.
No pressure.
This is the recording. Everything was Right. Well, these are the commands you need to run to create the delivery group. I'm going a bit quickly over them because of time. Yeah, after I figure this all out, I just put all the commands and all the parameters I need to fill in a sheet. So I could stare at it, and on the right screen and on the left screen I could code it in PowerShell. Same thing for the delivery group, and all those parameters reflect to the first block of code. And you can download this from my website, so you can look at it at your own whenever you like. Right, and I'm using the $square bracket because I'm using Automation Manager. That will allow me to put all those variables into the parameters of the runbook. So it's very easy to create, for example, if I change this to XD template and the machine type to send desktop, I could create this as a desktop VM with almost no changes. This is the runbook, and I'm going to show you the video. It takes 2 minutes, so I'm going to get it as quickly as possible. But what it does, firstly, it refers to Snapshot. It starts up the template machine. It goes through all the layers, the Windows layer, setup layer, application layer, etc. It seals it, and then the PowerShell commands which I just created will be used to distribute it and create a delivery group, and you can log on to it. Some parameters can be changed during the scheduling. For example, if you don't want to create two machines but 4, you can just change it. The first time I ran this with success, this is, yeah, I think it's amazing. It was 1 hour, 0 minutes, and 0 seconds. That has to mean something. Right. But why stop here? Because we just automated the creating of everything, but based on the same knowledge, you can also create removing it or updating it if you just want to change the disk to a new version, or if you want to scale out by adding machines or removing machines, scale in, which is not possible via the GUI, but you already know how to remove the accounts and break the connections in the right order, so you can actually automate removing machines very easily. Right. And in this case, we also had the services store, and we just published the runbook in the services store, so that the sales guy who needed to do the presentations can also rebuild the server image just by requesting a service and then saying how many machines he wants. Right, and that gives me the demo. It was more than 1 hour, but I added it to 2 minutes, so it will be real fast. So you need to focus. Okay. So now, starting the schedule. And you see, firstly, it will refer to Snapshot.
Is that part of the script as well, the music?
Yep. Yeah, so scripting. Then powering on the.
Actually, it's a hidden task in automation.
Hidden layer.
So now what will happen is when it powers on, the syspread out of the Google experience answers will be put in. The automation manager agent will be installed by the set complete. And meanwhile, here it's waiting for that agent to come online. So as soon as it comes online, which is just about now, it starts going through all my automation layers. Now it's installing the Windows update. Should only take 3 seconds. Yeah. It's going to install the Strix components, which is the VDA agent. Then installing REST Workspace Manager. Office. Not many applications at this time, but of course by now there's a lot more. Then it's finished. I seal the image. And now the PowerShell functions which I created will be used for the MCS bits. So you see here that the virtual machine snapshot is being copied. That the preparation machine will be there for. Yeah, it's very
Can't give up.
So, and it's deploying out the XA1 and 2. And we can log into it. So that was just 1 click. All the other clicks was just checking me what's going on. And you can log into your desktop. So that's I think I did it in 30 minutes and I ran for at least 40. So. Questions?
Will you have to, as additions or features get added to MCS, will you have to modify or go back to any of the scripts that you've written?
That's a good question because I created this with 7.6. I also tested it with 7.5 and 7.8 and it all works. But now 7.9 has the MCS RAM, so I don't know if it will work.
Yeah.
But you are free to test because you can download it from our website.
Okay, great.
Yeah, any more questions? Yeah.
How do you manage Windows updates?
Yeah, I use a PowerShell module called PS Windows Updates, and it's really good because you can download from WSUS, and you can say, do it right now, and actually you can see the progress. And what's happening is that there's a write progress built in that can be captured by the REST automation agent, so you can actually see what update is it installing at this time. So it's really convenient way to apply updates. So PS Windows Update module from the gallery of Microsoft. Any more questions?
Thanks.